Welcome, fellow page tours. Welcome back to the weekly update. It's where I talk about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read, what I won't get to, and everything else in between. If you'd like to connect with me, the best place is on our website at pagetune.com. There's lots of blog posts, articles, reviews, all that sort of thing. I have my review for All That We See or Seem. It's a quick read. I don't really like to write long reviews, so it's a quick one if you'd like to check that out. Or you can listen to last week's update and get the gist of it from that. So I usually like to start these out with what I've been reading. So we'll go ahead and start there. And I hope everyone is having a great week. The weather's changing, at least here it is for me, getting colder in the mornings at least. And it's nice to have a break from the heat. I'm not sure about all of you, but I just got really tired of the heat. This summer felt much hotter than previous summers. So I had much less motivation to go and do things outside as I did in previous years. So thankfully, we're getting some cooler temperatures. And it also makes for easier reading. Felt like you get those cozy vibes when it's cold outside and you have, if you want to kind of warm up with something. It kind of encourages that kind of environment that it's easier to read in, at least for me anyway. So, as I mentioned, I did finish All That We See or Seem last week by Ken Liu. That review is up, and I discussed it on last week's episode. This week, I am just flying through negative space. It's a very, very easy read. Well, it's a fast read. It's not an easy read. It is very disturbing. I forgot how dark and how messed up it is. And I'm catching things on my second read that I did not catch the first time. I think that's pretty common. I think that happens with pretty much every book. You'll always find something different the second read that you didn't catch the first read. But there's a lot of dark stuff going on. And it's darker than I remember it being. I remember it being dark, but it is bleaker than I remember and just disturbing. It's not really scary. It's more of a dread of that something is very wrong. Something is going on, but you're not sure what exactly it is. There's not a monster that's hiding. There's nothing in the forefront that is a threat. It's more of a overwhelming sense of dread that something is really wrong here. But everyone seems to be falling into this, this kind of trap of living their lives and knowing something's wrong, but nobody knows what exactly it is. And I won't say too much about the book, but it is very, very disturbing. So if you are sensitive to a lot of that stuff, it may not be for you. It's very dark. Also this week, Page Burners is restarting our Malazan reading group. We will be discussing the prologue through chapter 2 this week. So I'll be reading House of Chains today to start to catch up with that and catch up on the reading. We record on Tuesday nights, and then we usually release the episodes on Saturdays. So at least I do. I think Varsha releases hers on Fridays sometimes. But I try to be consistent with mine with Saturdays just because that's what everyone's used to. So if you are reading along with us, that's what we are reading this week. The prologue, chapters 1 and chapters 2, and then stop at 3. Don't read chapter 3 if you're reading with us. This is my favorite. It was funny to see. I would look up some reviews on House of Chains, and I saw a lot of reviews that refer to this as the worst book in the series. It's actually my favorite book in the series of the ones that I've read anyway. I got to book 5 last time and I stopped reading, but I remember it being, this is probably my favorite book in the series that I read. I don't want to say too much, but I love the way it starts. It's more of a focused story. It's not, doesn't feel as broad and as grand at first anyway. And I just love that. And I love the twists and turns. And this is my favorite of, at least it was last time, House of Chains. So I'm excited to get back into it and happy to get back to our normal schedule. I think the break was needed. It can be a slog when you read and you're meeting with the group every week and you have to keep up. And sometimes it's hard to maintain that consistency, especially for me with with this series can be very challenging for me at times. And when certain other books aren't as challenging or aren't as difficult, at least for me to get through sometimes. And I know people love Malazan, and I really appreciate it, but sometimes I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, so it takes me a little bit longer to catch on to things. but anyway, so that's what I've been reading and what's on the plate for this week. I am getting into more manga. I mentioned this last week. There's a few manga that's been suggested to me. I'm going to pick something here soon. I know Leviathan. It's a science fiction horror that's high on my list. I there's a few other ones that I'd like to get into, but I want to pick one that maybe if someone wants to read along, they can and listen along. That might be fun. I did finally read Berserk, chapter or is it chapter 42 or volume 42, and it was okay. It's a little bit frustrating, to be honest, because and this, no spoilers for Berserk, but this series has been going on for 20 plus years, and when you wait a year between volumes and you wait for it to be published and then you wait for it to be translated to English, you wait so long for something, and it just it didn't feel fulfilling. It didn't feel like much things. There are things that happen, and the artwork is beautiful, and it just, when it's so long between releases, I don't know how people who read it as it was being published, how they kept up with it. I don't understand. I'd have to read it every year just to catch up on what just happened, what happened previously, because it's so long between releases, and you can read them in 20, 30 minutes. It's so fast, and then you have to wait another year for another volume to be published. So I do wonder, because I know that some notes were left behind on what the plan was for the series. I wonder if they're going to speed that up to finish it, or will they draw this out for as long as they can? Because if so, we're talking many years to go, and that's a little frustrating. So we'll see what happens. But I didn't record a podcast for volume 42. I was going to record a solo podcast, but I need to do a little bit more thinking on it and read it again and take some more notes and see what I can pull out of it, what some talking points, something to discuss, because right now I got through it and I just don't feel like there's a whole lot to talk about. Just don't know really where to start. There's a few things to mention, but I don't know that there's really more than 10, 12 minutes worth of me yapping. So hopefully have something with volume 42 of Berserk. I'm going to look more into it, see what I can pull out of it, and see if it's episode worthy. I would like to get one out because I have all the other volumes, but we'll see kind of how things shake out. So that's what's on the agenda for this week. Also, I wanted to talk about my book of the week, my pick of the week, over on Panel Chewing. It's our weekly comic book podcast where Jared and I come together. We talk about the books that we pulled that week, and then we talk about our favorite book, which is the pick of the week. Both of us picked the same book, which is The Sacrificers 16. This is a book by Rick Remender, Rick Remender, Dave McCraig, and is it Nick Furuyama? I'll get the name here in a second. But it is basically, I've talked about this book before. It is a book about, it's a book about this, so there's these I always get this name wrong, the anamorphic characters. They're animals. They walk around and they live in this world where there's some gods that require a sacrifice every so many years for the rest of the people to live in peace. And people have to sacrifice their children to what they don't know what it is. They just have to sacrifice them. Their kids disappear, and they're never seen or heard from again. So you don't know what happens to them. And it's Max Furuyama. Fuyumara. She's sacrificing his name, or butchering his name. But anyway, so they sacrifice their kids to these gods, and in return they get harvest, they get a peaceful utopia, but they have to sacrifice their kids. And we follow one of the characters that are sacrificed by his family, the pigeon, and we find out what exactly happens to these kids when they are sacrificed, and things don't go exactly to plan. And the character arc for the pigeon is one of my favorites, I think, all time character arcs. Just the where he starts and where he ends up, and the journey that he takes, and these unintended consequences of decisions that he makes to try to make the world a better place ends up being the opposite at times. So I love that exploration of wanting to do the right thing and then things blowing up in your face, and that happens a few times to the pigeon. But this issue was the first one in a few months. The creative team took a couple months off, and this series is taking a direction that is a bold direction. It's a this The first 16 issues feels like a kind of a setup, the beginning of it's kind of like a prologue almost. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting where this series is taken and what's next for the series. I have faith in the creative team, so I know that I hope that they'll make the right calls. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Also, last week I had the Friday conversation with Jose. We talk about a lot of different topics, a lot of different stuff. Kind of just wing it and see what happens. Well, we had a little bit of a plan, but we tend to veer off and talk about other things and not get to half of our plan. But that was a fun. It's always easy talking to Jose. There's always things that we can talk about, and he's one of those people where we can disagree and it's okay. Nobody gets offended. That's always nice. So, yeah. So check that out if you haven't already. And this coming week, where there's another interview that I'm in the trying to schedule and try to get finalized, but it is very excited. So see how that all shapes up. But yeah, excited to see where that goes. I don't want to announce it just yet, but it's going to be a fun one if we are able to make it happen. And I'm trying to dip my toes back into author interviews here and there when I can. I took a while break. I just got burned out with all the kind of people committing to things and not following through, or just feeling. There's a point, and you can being completely honest here. There's a point where when you start doing certain things and people see that people view you as someone who can help them in some way, even if it's a little tiny way. You do feel, you start to wonder who's authentic and who's not, who really cares. I've met a lot of people, and the vast majority of them are not authentic. I'll just be completely honest. I've been lucky to meet quite a few, and I've taught, considering that I've taught to 200 people. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, so that's not too bad of a ratio. But I've been lucky to meet a few people who were genuinely care and genuinely wanted some kind of connection beyond what I could do for them or beyond how I can help them. And I've been lucky because I found some. I have a really good group of people that I talk to, and they help me out when they can, and they do things for me and they help me out. And when I don't ask for help, they just offer help with the website or with, basic, just promoting things or helping raise, because there is a cost for the forum and for the podcast and everything. And I've had people volunteer to donate just without me asking, just to help cover the costs, because it can get expensive. And that link is down below if anyone else is interested in pitching in. It all goes to the cost for the website and for the podcast. But I've been lucky to find people who truly care. And I've met many people who just don't, who are just kind of out for them, kind of view you as somebody who can help them. And then, there's no, it's a game for them. It's not just a business thing. If it was a business thing, I would understand it. But if they make it like they present themselves as someone who truly care, and then they obviously don't. If it's a business proposition, that's different. If it's something that, hey, look, I have this book, will you help me promote it? Sure. But it's not presented in that way. That's where I I get I've over the years I've gotten better about spotting that. But yeah, it happened. It would happen quite a bit, and I'm trying to be better about it. So I'm trying to be much more selective in who I choose to talk to and who I spend my time with and who I devote my time with, because it's not always easy with scheduling and things like that. And I just got burned out. So I'm very cautious now of who I talk to, who I'm willing to spend my time with, who I'm willing to kind of be vulnerable with. It's a lot different now for me. And yeah, so that's the reason why I've scaled back a lot on author interviews. And that's not to say all of them are like that, but I've met many who are like that. And I have my small group on the forum, and they're always welcome. But yeah, any quote unquote outsiders, I'm very cautious of who else I talk to. But anyway, that was probably way more information than you wanted or needed. So yeah, but anyway, hopefully that'll be up next Friday for the Friday conversation, and we'll see how that goes. The let's see what else I have here. The film on film chewing, or we're doing the Oscars project. The film that we watched this week was Ordinary People. I was surprised with how devoid of humor this movie is. It's a family drama about a son who dies, and the surviving son has survivor's guilt, and the whole family struggles. And it's very much an exploration of the family dynamic of maintaining a certain perception of the family, of everyone pretends, everyone is silent, and the use of silence in the film really speaks volumes on how the characters are feeling. And it's a very muted movie. The color palette's muted. The music is muted. The performances in many ways is muted. So it can be a very dark film, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But so we discussed that. That'll be up in a week or two over on Film Chewing. And speaking of author interviews, I wanted to finish up with this. This is something I've had in my mind, and Jose and I talked a little bit about it on the Friday conversation. But just with the podcast, for me, trying to decide what to do, because if you've ever created content before, videos or podcasts, you have to decide: are you going to try to do what the audience expects or the audience wants, or do you do what you would like to do and then just share it like a journal, like a reading journal, like just sharing your reading journal? And there's not a right or wrong way, depending on what your goals are. There's not really a right or wrong way, but it's something that I think about a lot, because some of the things that I enjoy doing the most, like the Second Apocalypse, things like Crossed, things like McCarthy, things like Negative Space, they're all very popular. There's all very popular episodes on the podcast. So in that sense, it works for me, because it's like, hey, I'll just do more of what I enjoy the most. But there are times when I wonder, should I do different things, or should I do something different just for the sake of doing something different and not worry about downloads, or worry about how many people are listening to certain episodes. So it's one of those things. It's a weird kind of decision to make, whether you follow what your audience wants, because if there may be times when the audience wants something that you don't enjoy. So do you give them what they want and it's not something that you enjoy? Or do you do the opposite? Do you do what you want and they may not enjoy it? Because it sucks to know that you're doing all this and no one's listening. So it's interesting. It's a decision everyone has to make whenever they're doing something like this. So, but at any rate, thank you for listening if you're still listening, and thank you for supporting the podcast and supporting me and all the stuff that we do over on Page Chewing. And with that, I guess we'll call it an update. I'm trying to be more consistent and trying to not be as inconsistent. But anyway, I'm running out of words here, so I'm going to continue my Sunday morning and get to some football and try to enjoy the day. I hope you do the same, and I hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have a great week, and we will talk to everyone very, very soon.